I was listening to a speech by Oswald Mosley earlier on the New British Union's YouTube channel. Mosley certainly had a way with words. It was said by quite a few back in the day that he could have been either a Conservative or Labour Party leader. He could have been Prime Minister if things had worked out differently. Anyway, this speech starts out, "Brother Blackshirts, my comrades in struggle." Yeah, the speech sounds very well rehearsed, very British and repressed, and it comes with an awful song at the end. This man's words will have spurred many to action back in the day. Personally, Mosley doesn't do it for me. He doesn't fire me up. His words do not fire me up. Then again, I'm here in 2014 viewing him from a historical perspective. Had I been a contemporary of his, my view of him would obviously be different. Another video on the New British Union's channel is the leader's speech uploaded last year. A man called Gary Rakes, hope I pronounced that correctly, is the leader, capital T, capital L. His speech is played in by the anthem of National Socialist Germany. Yeah. And we have a photo of the leader in his uniform sat behind his desk with laptop and paper in front of him. One nation, one people, one leader. That's the maxim. What would Britain be like under the heel of the New British Union? From what I can gather, the government would be run like a military operation. Rigid hierarchy, leader at the top, directorship team under him, various officers and members under the directorship team. Yeah. The leader says that New British Union is the only real alternative to the establishment old parties, which is simply ridiculous. There are many alternatives to the status quo, and you have to use your imagination. The wearing of uniforms sets New British Union apart from the democratic parties and ensures that the movement is a classless movement. So says the leader. How does it? How does wearing uniforms ensure the movement is a classless movement, Mr. Rakes? This is a uniformed fascist movement, according to Gary Rakes. I go and visit the main website earlier, and what do I see? I see fascist symbolism, I see the flashing circle, and one of the cheesy posters is a giant black shirt smashing Big Ben, smashing Westminster, symbol of the establishment. Cartoonish stuff really, crude, childish symbolism. And one of the maxims is fascism is freedom. It's one of the maxims of the movement. Fascism is freedom, is that right? Looking at the basic principles I was earlier on the site, some interesting ideas in there. Yeah, they want to bring back in the long term a compulsory national service, 2 years of military service for both young men and women. The movement believes in a state religion. Christianity would be favoured, Church of England specifically. The Church of England is already favoured by the establishment, of course, but anyway. They are looking to ultimately abolish the multi-party system. Yeah. And there's predictable right-wing talk of getting tough on immigration and all that bollocks. One people, one flag, one value system. Yeah. In reality, there are a multitude of value systems in modern Britain. But, yeah. Some of what is said in the basic principles sounds quite reasonable on the face of it, but in practice, a so-called fascist Britain under an NBU government would be a total disaster, I think. Plainly and simply, this group is advocating dictatorship and totalitarianism. NBU wants to create a fascist government of national unity by legal and constitutional methods during a general election. That is not going to happen. If new British Union members actually believe this will happen, they are living in cloud cuckoo land, I would suggest. Movements like this don't represent freedom. They represent hierarchical government, nationalism, crude appeals to symbols. Movements like this represent a strict regimentation of political and economic life. It's authoritarian bullshit. There seems to be some contradiction on the main website as well. As I was reading it, I noticed in the New British Union Education and Development section, there's talk of fascism not being suited to the ballot box because it is not democratic. Fascism, that is. It is revolutionary in thought and practice. But then you read the first policy of the so-called 10 points for action. The first policy is legal constitutional establishment of a fascist government during a general election and the use of national referenda. So yeah, contradictory stuff, which doesn't surprise me really. Bottom line, dressing up in silly uniforms and posing in front of Union Jacks or doing silly fascist salutes isn't going to make Britain a better or more prosperous country. It's not going to improve the lot of Britain's people. Dressing up in silly uniforms, doing silly salutes, all it does is make you look silly.